St. Thomas Aquinas was a practitioner of St. Paul's words in that he prayed without ceasing. His method of prayer led him to contemplate the most profound truths that have ever been articulated by the human mind. It took him years of practice, study, and silence to arrive at this closeness with the divine, which Aquinas refers to as the ascent to God. Aquinas teaches us that we are capable of participating more perfectly in our ascent to God in our personal daily prayers. To pray more perfectly requires 3 required conditions. First, that the person who prays should approach God whom he prays. This is signified in the word prayer, because prayer is the raising up of one's mind to God. God does not force us to pray. On the contrary, a true prayer is one that comes from the will of the one praying. There needs to be a preliminary desire that ends in the willful act of raising one's mind to God. The second is that there should be a petition, and this is signified in the word intercession. So, after coming to God in a willful assent to the mind, the second step to a proper prayer is to ask of Him what you need to grow closer to Him. In this act of humility, you acknowledge God's power and succumb to His love. At the same time, you admit to your weaknesses and recognize within yourself your intense desire to know and to serve God through love. Love, then, is the bond that connects the asker with the divine answerer. This connection forms the one praying to share in the thoughts of God, who then establishes His will in theirs. Aquinas goes on to say, we need to pray to God, not in order to make known to Him our needs or desires, but that we ourselves may be reminded of the necessity of having recourse to God's help in these matters. When making an ask of God, Aquinas differentiates between 2 ways we do this. On this case, sometimes one asks for something definite, and then some say it is intercession. Or we may ask for something indefinitely, for instance, to be helped by God. Or we may simply indicate a fact and then call it insinuation. In other words, a specific request would be an intercession, like when I prayed that my friend would convert his life and believe in the gospel. A non-specific request is called an insinuation, like when I tell God I'm tired. I'm insinuating that I need His help to find the energy to pursue His plans. Finally, the third condition is the reason for impetrating what we ask for, and this either on the part of God or on the part of the person who asks. The reason for our prayer is paramount to the prayer itself. God constantly calls us to communion with Him because of His sanctity alone. And so, since we do not know how to pray as we ought, we submit our reason to God in the form of pleading through sacred things, as Aquinas refers to it. In its perfect sense, prayer thus is an answer to God's constant call for us to become holier for His sake. Aquinas also mentions that the reason for prayer on the part of the person who asks is just as important as on the part of God. If God is the one who calls us to pray, then our proper response is to be thankful to be called in the first place. Think about it. The God of the universe, the creator of the galaxies, knows our name and wants to become one with Him. When our reason is inclined to do His will in all of its perfection, how else are we supposed to respond but through thanksgiving? Hence, Aquinas tells us that through giving thanks for benefits received, we merit to receive yet greater benefits. St. Paul tells us that no eye has seen, nor ear has heard, and no mind has imagined what God has prepared for those who love Him. And the way we show God that we love Him is through prayer. All prayers that fit the following requirements are considered proper in the eyes of God, and we must be mindful of them each time we take time to make the ascent to God. They are, again, to be intentional. The one who is to pray must enter the presence of God willfully. Next, they must be intercessional. Our desires must be presented to God, who knows every need that we have. Third, they must be reasonable. Be it for God's glory, our thankfulness to Him, or both, the reason for our prayer must be to be united to God more closely. The next time you attend Mass, you'll notice that all 3 of these requirements are fulfilled. The question is, does your daily prayer routine maintain them too? Do you fall into the temptation of quickly reciting your rosary or haphazardly mumbling your prayers? Doing so is not necessarily a bad thing, as you are at least making an attempt to make your ascent to God. But how effective is mumbling when compared to the intentional contemplative state of true prayer? Pray like Aquinas. Be intentional. Allow God to intercede in your life. Understand the reason for your holy longings in God, and be thankful in knowing that you are His beloved son or daughter.